of the room? Yeah? Okay. Thank you so much for waiting. I really appreciate this. There's morning going on, but I'm here. I'm going to talk about the security best practices for your websites and your own personal accounts today. First of all, my name is Aurora. If you don't speak Spanish, you can call me Aurora. Aurora, I've heard everything. I work in the trust and safety team in Google, back there in San Francisco. And yeah, I'm originally from Spain. I moved over here 2 years ago, and I love this place. Okay, what am I going to cover today? Well, first of all, I'm going to let you know how to identify different types of hacks. Secondly, we're going to learn how to recover hacked sites. And thirdly, we're going to take home some security best practices for your accounts and your websites. But first of all, let's take a time travel back to 1998. This is how, I remember this. Who remembers this? Great. Back in 1998, this is how Google looked like. It was a bunch of links, the 10 blue links, and that was all the results you got, which it was awesome. If we fast forward to a few years now, I'm not sure if internet is going to be strong enough, but I'm going to let you know. This is what you probably see nowadays is a bunch of, if you're looking for a recipe, you find recipes, you find reviews, you find map results, you find video results. So right now, the results have become much more sophisticated, and unfortunately, so have the, there we go. So these are the type of results that we see nowadays. So it's not just the 10 blue links, it's much more. But unfortunately, as results and search gets more sophisticated, so do the hacks. We have detected that there's been an increase by 32% of hacks, and yeah, that's really unfortunate, because that means that these are real people behind those hacks, and we have to try to. What are the most common hacks? Well, I'm not sure if this audience is familiar with hacks. Maybe it's happened to you. Who has been hacked here? I'm sorry to see so many hands up. Well, you might recognize some of these hacks. Usually the way hacks work is that hackers use they're called SEO hacks, so they exploit the SEO of websites that are working well and have a good reputation online, and they will just access their backend and exploit the reputation of that website. So usually we tend to think that it's a hacker in a basement with a hoodie, and they're just targeting our site, and they're coming for us. They usually exploit vulnerabilities within a system. So if you have an outdated plugin or an outdated software that you're procrastinating and you haven't updated it for a while, they're going to use that as a vulnerability, and they're going to hack you through there. They're going to identify a pattern. So a few of the most common hacks that we find are the gibberish hack, the Japanese keyword hack, or the cloud keyword hack. Who has seen the Japanese hack here? So it's not that you're sometimes looking for Japanese content, maybe you are, but sometimes you're just looking for content in English, and you get those results for a website in English. That means that they have hacked you, that they're inserting different pages, different directories to your website, and they auto-generate that Japanese gibberish content that links to fake affiliate websites, fake merchandise. And it's not great news. A very good way of detecting this hack is if you have verified your website on Search Console, you will then identify someone who has created themselves as an administrator of your website, and shouldn't be there because you haven't given them access. So most likely that means that you've been hacked. Okay. So then how can you clean and protect your site? Firstly, if you're a user, on the user side, if you are accessing a site and you see these warnings, phishing attack ahead or the site ahead contains harmful programs, my suggestion is that you don't access those sites. Many times, I mean, the safe browsing team in Google works really, really hard in trying to identify these harmful sites and let the users know ahead of time, because sometimes you will access these sites and there will be a link that they encourage you to click, and then you've downloaded something bad, or you're giving information to a phishing site and you're sold, basically. So if you see these warnings on Google Chrome, my recommendation is that you don't access. And then as a webmaster, if you think you've been hacked, as in if you've seen on Google search that your result looks like that, this site may be hacked, that is no good news. No one wants to appear like that, and it's definitely going to harm your reputation, the reputation of your website, that it takes so long to build. And check this immediately on Search Console. So if you're using Search Console, and maybe I'm talking here a language that people don't understand, do you use Search Console? Do you? Okay, more or less. So I'll get into that a bit later for those of you who don't really know what it is. But my recommendation is that you check there, because they will let you know where the issue is. Okay, and if you actually have been hacked, what do you do? Well, at Google we have the developer guides that give you a good way to understand, first, what type of hack you have, and two, how to get rid of it. So if you go to this short link here, bit.ly/nohacked, you'll be able to find this guide. It's very useful. There's many other types of guides in this website, this portal here. But for what I'm talking about, this is the useful one. If you want to take a note, go ahead. Essentially, what you have to do once you've been hacked is to make sure that you know someone who's able to help you if you're not able to do this yourself. Quarantine your site so that it doesn't expand. This is like a virus. This is like when there's a sickness or something. This is what you do. Use Search Console, as I was mentioning before. Access the damage. Identify what is the vulnerability and where it is. And after you've cleaned it and maintained it, request a review on Search Console. And then whatever has happened to your reputation on the ranking might be able to get fixed as well, because hacking does affect your reputation online. So as I was saying before, a website becomes a potential target based on technical signals. It's not that unless your site is a massive site, they won't become an individual target for hackers. And now I'm going to move towards some best practices for you to take home today. First of all, I'm going to address the safer login. Secondly, the safer website. Thirdly, safer connection. And fourthly, Search Console. First of all, what is this? Shout it out.
Bad passwords.
Bad passwords. Yeah, I thought someone would just say passwords, but no, you hit it on the head. It's definitely bad passwords. And why are they bad passwords?
Easy to guess.
Sorry?
Easy to guess.
Easy to guess. Yeah, they're very easy to guess. They're. Do you want to? Someone wants to tell me why they're easy to guess?
They're also commonly used.
Yep.
They're what?
Commonly used.
Commonly used. Unfortunately, these are the top used passwords out there, which is not good news. If you're using one of these, please change it. Yeah, I think we've all used one of these at some point, just not used anymore. They're sequences of letters, of numbers. They're combinations of sequences of letters and numbers. They're actual words. They're sentences that are really easy to figure out. Yeah, just if you're using one of them, my recommendation is don't. Okay, and how to create a good password? Well, first of all, the length is very important. At least 8 characters is the recommendation. Use lower, uppercase, special characters. I mean, we all know this, but then we don't do it. So use those. Make them unique. So we don't usually have one key, one master key for our house door, for our car, for our locker at work or in the gym. We don't have the same key, right? So let's not use the same password for all of the different accounts that we have. Why? Because if someone finds out one of your passwords, they will go out and figure out the rest of your access to your accounts like that. So let's make them unique.
Are you still just saying eight characters? That
Sorry.
seems very short.
Let's go to the questions at the end if you're okay with that. I just want to make sure that I get through everything. Keep that question. Thank you. And yeah, if you're doing this, you don't really have to update your passwords every so often. They should be strong enough. One recommendation that we have: use passphrases. What are passphrases? Well, take a sentence. But take a sentence. Okay. Well, before going into this, be careful with common things that are with personal information that you use for your passwords. Why? With social media, it is really easy for hackers to figure out the name of your pet, the maiden name that your mother had, the address that you live in. So don't use those things in your passwords. So now, let's go to the passphrase. For example, I have 2 dogs, 1 cat, and 3 birds. Now, think about a sentence that is common to you and that only you will know. I don't have this, so don't go and try to figure out my password. But what we do in this case is we take the first character of each word and we either turn it into a special character or we simply remove the rest of the letters and it ends up being that. Now that is something that you will only remember and that it will be difficult for any other person to figure out. So passphrases, really useful thing to do. And yet again, what I was saying, you might have a very strong password, but still you can be phished, you can be hacked. Now what do we do in this case? We add a second layer of protection, 2-step verification. Who uses two-step verification? Good. There's still some hands that didn't go up, so that hopefully by the end of today we get more 2-step verifications out there. What is 2-step verification? What it does, this is the extra layer of protection to your account. So think of it like this. This is your account, this is your password, this is what you know. Now you protect it with the second layer with something that you have. A code, a security key, physical security key, or a call that someone gives you at some point. So this second layer is very, very good because the hacker might know your password, but they won't be able to know the rest. So these are some of the examples that you might use for two-step verification. What we recommend is the security key. Why? Because I might figure out your password, but then I have to actually be physically close to you in order to steal your security key from you. So, yeah, if you don't use a security key, go ahead and use it. We don't support any particular brands at Google. We do have one in the Google store, but use whatever works for you. We just recommend it. There's also the Google Authenticator app. Yeah, I don't know if someone uses it here. Yeah. And it's good. You can use it for many different accounts. It's on your phone. It's quite seamless. It doesn't really need Wi-Fi. So yeah, it's also a useful tool. Okay, and if you have a Gmail account, I recommend that you do a security checkup. Now I do them every so often, and usually they tell me that I've used the password twice, which is not great news, especially since I deliver these talks. Or that one of my passwords is not very strong, or something that might not be working well with my account. Really recommend to go to your security checkup and do this every so often as well. So yeah, by all means, give it a try. Okay, so that was a safer login for you. Now let's think about your website. An outdated software is like an open shoelace. You might function with it for a while, but at some point you might just trip and fall. So update your software, it's simple. The leading cause of infections is usually a poorly set up software with CMSs. I'm guessing your websites are all hosted in a CMS. Yeah, mostly. So if you get the option to update your software, so your plugins, please do, because they're usually vulnerability patches. Think about them as your antivirus for your CMS. So monitor your website status, pay attention to the guidelines, and check your server configuration. And enable automatic updates. I know that sometimes this is a pain, but if your software or your plugin doesn't offer automatic updates, I would be iffy about using them, because you just want to make sure that you keep up with this, especially when you have a lot of plugins in your website. I hear a lot of laughter there. I will be interested in hearing your questions after. Have a backup, because we all know how important it is to get back up if something happens. It takes a long time to build reputation, and it takes so little to lose it. So have a backup to be able to get back on your feet quickly. And then your safer connection. Who here has a website in HTTPS? Okay. Now, in that case, what you will probably know is that, I like to use this example. HTTP can be considered like a postcard that can be read by anybody. HTTPS is like a sealed letter that will go from the sender to the receiver. What HTTPS does is it encodes, it encrypts the conversation, the communication between the user and the website and the server. So also, if you're using HTTP these days, your website will appear as not secure. You don't want that, because then users are not going to trust your website and will not, if you're asking them for some type of data, they will not share it with you. Why would you, as a user? So why using HTTPS? Well, for the encryption, for the data integrity, and for the authentication. You want to make sure that you, as a webmaster, you are the only one seeing the information that the user is sharing with you. So if you haven't implemented HTTPS, by all means, go ahead. Also, HTTPS is required for new web technologies. For example, if you want to use geolocation, autofill for forms, or camera, you will need HTTPS. They won't allow you to do it without it. As well as progressive web apps, push notifications. Now the industry is moving, not Google, like this is something that is benefiting everybody. The industry is moving towards HTTPS, so why not doing it yourself? It is also a ranking signal in Google, because Google will serve users whatever is safer for them. So it's going to be positive for SEO, why not implementing it? And I'm not sure if you've heard, I've heard a lot from different webmasters that HTTPS is expensive, certificates may be expensive. They're not really. There's the initiative Let's Encrypt. It's an industry-wide initiative that offers free basic certificates or premium, but they're not even that expensive, to different users. And if you haven't got HTTPS, this might be a very good way of going. I recommend it. And finally, Search Console. I had a few hands up with people that use Search Console. Search Console is a very useful platform where you verify your website, and then you have information on how it's performing on Google search. Now, it is very useful to know how it's doing in indexing and crawling. If you have AMP, how it's doing it with AMP, how it's doing it with your structured data. It's also very useful for Google to tell the webmaster whenever there is a security breach. Now, in 2017, 61% of webmasters who were hacked could not be reached. Why? Because they didn't have Search Console. Now, within the ones that could be reached, 84% successfully cleaned up their hacks. So this means that whenever we are able to tell the user, hey, you have been hacked and these are the problems and this is where you can find it, they actually respond and they actually are able to fix it and to detect where the problem is. So it's a very good way of knowing, of contacting the user in that way. There was also this way, like I was mentioning with the Japanese hack, when you suddenly detect that someone has verified themselves into your website and you don't know who they are, this is very, very important. You need to know who you give access to on your Search Console. And yeah, we also inform about manual actions. So if your site has been flagged for spam and you're not spamming, like you know that you're not spamming, this means that you might have been hacked. If you're spamming, then you also know that you've been caught. So either way. But we will be able to communicate to the webmaster what's going on. Okay. So if you have to take something home today, is make security your priority, both as a user and as a webmaster. It is very, very important to use these tools to protect yourself online, because unfortunately there's bad actors there and there's nothing we can do about it unless we just take it ourselves and do it ourselves. Yeah, thank you. That's all for me. And now I'll take some questions. You had a question, sir.
I was just wondering, why you're still just saying 8 characters on the password. So that's like, 10 years ago, that was kind of the standard, but not now.
Yeah, that's the limit. That's the minimum that we recommend. I mean, minimum that. At least give us 8.
Unfortunately, there's still sites that still limit the password to 8 characters. As bad as that is.
I can't hear you.
I said there are still sites that say, okay, 8 characters is the most your password can be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it really should be like 12 or 16 characters or more. But, yeah.
Two-step verification. Yes?
What is your opinion about password manager programs?
Like OnePass or, yeah. We don't recommend one in particular. We don't endorse. And I have nothing against password managers because they're very useful to remember and to store them in a place. Now remember that those systems can also be hacked, and they have in the past. So use it at your own discretion, but things happen. Yeah.
I just want to throw out, I use one called Splash Data that just does Wi-Fi, and you don't have to use the cloud, so you can just store it on your local devices and sync between your local devices.
Splash, okay. I've never heard about that one.
Splash Data.
Homework for me. Thank you. Any more questions? Yeah?
So, you are at a Drupal conference,
Yeah.
So, but you seem not to be aware that Drupal does not offer automatic updates. There's an initiative.
I was not, okay.
there's an initiative underway to make it happen.
Yeah.
But we still have to update manually.
Oh, okay. I feel your pain then.
No. I work for an agency. It's a cash cow.
Yeah, no. But it's for the users. I mean, yeah, it's not the best thing. I was not aware of that. Thanks for pointing it out. I'm bringing it back to my team. Thank you. Any more questions? Yeah?
You mentioned backups, but I always like to say that backups are useless unless you test restoring from them.
Fair enough. Yes?
Another question.
Mhm.
I've worked within a company where we have Google Analytics, and there are a lot of different people who want access to this. So we allow this through passwords, of course. But how connected is that? I mean, how risky is that to getting into the system, into the Google of getting hacked essentially for
I-
Google Analytics?
Google Analytics, I don't think that the risk is that high. The risk would be with Search Console because then they have access to other parts of the backend of your website. Google Analytics is simply
It's
taking
separate enough.
it's taking data from how your website is doing in terms of impressions and geolocation, etc. But I don't see the risk as long as you control who has the access and as long as you know who has what type of access each user has. So you might be the owner, but you might give someone just viewing access, not editing access, for example. You need to control the different stages, and I think that's something you can do.
And don't use the same account for Google Search Console and Google Analytics. That would be the risk. So, like if you make sure you're just adding people as separate users in Google Analytics, not giving them one account, you know, the main account.
Yeah, do that for sure.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. We don't necessarily, like my team doesn't really connect that much with Google Analytics. That means that they're quite separate products. Any more questions? Okay, well listen, thank you so much. If you want to reach out to me, I don't know, I think I put my Twitter at the beginning, but Aurora Morales, you can find me on Twitter. And yeah, thanks for being a great audience today. Thank you.